Hi, it's Corinne from my chemical-free house. I'm going to do another walkthrough today of how I analyze buildings for mold potential, chemical off-gassing, and also keeping contaminants out. So I'm going to go in that order if you want to skip ahead to one of those topics. This is a concrete high-rise. My other video was wood-built. This is concrete. And as I said in the last one, I prefer concrete. I find they're built better. They're built by professional companies. You want to look up the developer. That's easy to look up. Just look up the address. You'll see the developer. You'll see the year it was built, and you'll see the type of building. Usually, in my city, that's easy to find. So, built by a professional company, an architect involved. You can see details that were well done, like this exhaust fan ran continuously for the first 9 months. They told me. So you couldn't turn that off if you wanted to, because this building had to dry out properly for the first 6 months. And again, like I talked in the last video, baseboard heating with no AC works perfectly fine and is excellent in my climate because I don't have to worry about ducted HVAC, which I do really poorly with. I find mold and dust builds up after a few years. So that doesn't work if you have high humidity, because the AC is crucial to controlling the humidity, especially in concrete. Concrete is so prone to going moldy. I know people think that it has no mold food in it, but think about any basement, which is just all concrete and concrete walls and concrete floor, and how quickly basements go musty. So imagine a whole building in the tropics. If you've traveled Cuba and even places like Spain where they don't use humidity control, it was just a total disaster. Everything was musty, and musty means mold. It may not be the most toxic mold, but I never found musty to be good. It's just, it may not be as bad as some of the odorless molds, but anyway. So here's my humidity meter. This is still showing the outdoor humidity. It's taken a long time to switch between the two and acclimatize and give me a good reading. So just a really cheap one. They're really inexpensive, and you really got to have a humidity meter and a moisture reader. So this will just show you if you want to compare your outdoor to your indoor. My indoor is actually about 50%, which is fine. You don't want it to go over 60 or staying at 60 is very borderline, so you want it around 50. And this is sort of showing the outside. It's just kind of adjusting very slowly to the inside. But you definitely want to check that in the summer. That's going to be more when it's a concern, or maybe in the shoulder seasons when in places where you've turned off the AC because you don't really need it, but it's still really humid. So it just depends on your climate, right? Here, the shoulder seasons get cold pretty quick, and I can easily get this down to 50% in the winter and the summer. So that is, and the moisture meter, as I said, if I was buying this, I would certainly take a moisture meter to the tiles. This is only 2 years old, but I would probably even just redo those preemptively because it's not likely to be done right. But this is actually the top floor, and I did say in the other video I don't go with the top floor, but these are just general guidelines, right? I go first with how I feel and how I react. I'm very unmasked. Really high ceilings here, but and I did have concerns about it being the top floor, and I wanted to see how, if I felt okay, and I do think this is good. It's only 2 years old, right? And I was able to see part of the roof. It's a two-part building. Part of it's a heritage building. Half of this is a heritage building, half of it's completely new. So no facade, no old facade, nothing old on the side at all. But that can be deceiving online because they might advertise it as a heritage build because that's cool for many people. Not cool for those of us that have mold sensitivities, but even the old side, I've only kind of passed through there, but they've done a really good job actually of gutting it. Sometimes they do a horrific job and the whole thing just reeks like mold. So be careful when something's listed on Airbnb as a heritage building. Is it all a heritage building, or is it just part of it and they built on? I've seen that quite a few times. Or is it just the facade? And then the flip side of that is I also ran into one horrible Airbnb that was brand new. It said brand new, and then in the ad it also said brand new. It said in the title and in the ad. And it looked new, I'm looking at it, very typical kind of the look, the style that's in my area, and it looks new. I didn't see any signs of it being old, but it was a 1960s building that was renovated, and it absolutely reeked like mold the second I walked in, and it was horrible. I couldn't get that smell of mold off me for quite a while, and I did not get my money back, thanks Airbnb. They actually, I don't think they deal well at all with people with these disabilities, so those are two things to look out for when looking at the age of the building. So as I said, if you have a moisture meter, you're going to check those tiles for sure. If you're not on the top floor, or even if you are, I mean, this is just under the loft right now, but if you're not on the top floor, you're likely going to have another bathroom on top of you, so you might check that ceiling there too. And then obviously you're going to inspect other areas. I'm going to make a whole checklist on places to inspect, but those are just two quick things. Everyone should have the humidity meter and the moisture meter, which I'll link to. And then the fan, as I mentioned, it stays on. It stayed on for the first 9 months to dry out the concrete, and it does seem to be on a humidity timer. And I don't think there's a way to turn that off once it's on. I have tried going to the breaker box, and the reason for that is going to be in the third topic of keeping out contaminants. Excuse the Instapot. Sorry for those who are noise sensitive. All right, so the second thing is off-gassing potential, and then I'm going to get back to keeping out the contaminants and why you want to know how to turn that fan off. So 2 years old, right? Materials are improving, as I mentioned, especially flooring. Engineered and laminate flooring are really, really so much better, so much lower in formaldehyde than the ones that are, 10 years old or so. Just older ones, they've just gotten better and better. They can easily pass something like, many brands can pass something like Green Guard Gold. Not all. This is a high-end one, it seems to me, just judging by, well, first how it looks, but also I'm not picking up any off-gassing. I can tell that they've just used a really simple polyurethane, just by the fact that it looks really, let me see if I can get a really clear shot. It looks really natural, and it's not super glossy, right? So it's just a simple Bana, or Loba maybe. Polyurethane that off-gasses pretty quickly. And I wouldn't want to be in the room while they were doing that, but 2 years old, right? So, the cabinets are still off-gassing, 2 years old. That's really, really typical. I can pick that up. And even with cabinets getting so much better again, this is not urea formaldehyde here. This is probably phenylformaldehyde. So the most off-gassing that I'm finding is in these cabinets, and that's probably because it could be worse materials, cheaper materials, but it's probably just because they're not used as much. And the kitchen, of course, not constantly open, but you open and close them a number of times a day, and that's how they're off-gassing. So there's some windows up here that you can't really reach. Not the absolute best design in the world, but really hard to get up there if you wanted to open those windows. Other than that, here we have the drywall meet the concrete. Concrete's very low in off-gassing, and even the paints are really improving. And so this is giving people way more of an opportunity to go newer, because if you've seen older buildings that have really strongly off-gassing floors and cabinets and things, that's just as bad, and it's older. So that's off-gassing potential. This is a really simple building. There's not that much. There's going to be some insulation, probably fiberglass, but there's not a whole lot else going on. And even those are improving with time, right? So this is helping us get into newer buildings, those of us who are mold sensitive and don't want to be in older buildings. The roof, unfortunately, is probably wood built, so that's why I often say I don't like the top floor, just the problems there. But because I've been able to inspect the roof on half of this building, I felt pretty confident, and again, I'm using my own senses, right? I'm unmasked to mold, so there's only so much I can say in terms of how you're going to analyze this, and I think you should, because otherwise you're going to you could go see 100 places in my city and think that this was the moldiest city you've ever been to, because you just picked 100 houses, and houses are so much worse. And older apartments are horrible. Like I mentioned, one from the 60s, it's just not. Chances of the one from the 60s being good, don't count on it, right? So that's why I'm saying it's really important to analyze these. And you should go see as many as you can. You should even sleep in as many as you can with Airbnbs. And when you go see a building, ask to see as many suites in the same building. If the Airbnb, usually if there's an Airbnb, there's usually a few in the same building. But and they're all a little different. You have to use your senses there, right? There's going to be some that are musty. There's going to be ground floor musty. There's going to be top floor possible roof. There's going to be just a problem you just can't even pinpoint. A musty lower floor, possibly because it just took on more water during the build. So being up higher also just feels nicer, getting away from some of those city toxins. All right, so the last topic is keeping out contaminants. And so what it sounds like is that's turned on by itself here because of my cooking or something, my sweating, because it's really hot in here. Okay, so what happened? So this is creating negative pressure, right? That's pulling air out, and that's wanting the building to pull air from other places. I talked about in the last video. Usually I crack the window. This building was designed to bring air through there, and the owner, not me, I'm not the owner. The owner put that to cover the door because she didn't like that cold air coming in. But that is the whole system. That's how they designed it, so that goes out. This is coming in. There's a number of reasons why I like that she covered that. And that's because I'd rather control where my air is coming from. So if I have that on, if that comes on automatically, I'm going to crack a window for sure. So even when it's cold. If it's really, really cold, maybe you do want to use the hallway air, but you want to see if that air is good. So, is the hallway musty? Is the carpet's often really strongly off-gassing. Sometimes they use really strong carpet cleaners, usually. So sometimes, I should say usually. And it might just not be the best air, right? And maybe your neighbors are doing something that's, I heard one person in the group, she was saying there's a garbage chute across from her, probably on a lower floor, right? And that smell was coming in through there. So what you'd want to do there, you would want to seal this door as well as you can. Get some advice there on how to get a really tight seal on that door. And then, during the times that they were doing this, cleaning out the garbage chutes once a week with this chemical product, you would make sure everything is off. So you want to find out if there's a way to turn this off. And that's why I was saying, see if you can turn it off with the breaker, or how you get that off, because when there's something outside bothering you, you have to get all the negative air off. So, this is another one. If you were in the middle of cooking, you would close that. So there was a fire here. There was like a house fire or an industrial fire. It smelled horrible, like burning garbage, burning rubber, burning plastic. It was really, I don't like that. It's not good for me. So, I closed it all up. And then I attempted to turn that fan off. That was the next thing, but I was having trouble because I'm not sure which breaker if it's connected to a breaker, if it's possibly not connected to any of those breakers, so that the building stays dried out. And that's great that they have that feature, but those of us who need to control what's coming in, ideally you want to be able to, and ideally you would want to be able to turn that off, but ideally you also want the whole building to be on that kind of humidity control. That's really helping, right? So that's keeping contaminants out. That's what you do when something's coming in from the outside. Close everything up, make everything sealed, and if something's coming in, it's hard to do in apartments, but you can seal up the outlets. You can take them off. You can put a rubber seal on. You can even cover up the holes, the plug holes. It's a technical term. So you can bring out those energy audit people, and sometimes I know I have seen that they don't want to come to apartments. Sometimes they'll definitely come out to a house, and you're looking for those energy audit people. And what they're going to do is they're going to open up all those outlets, and they're going to open up everything that's, there's a fire extinguisher. I don't know if they can open that, but all the things that they can open, the lights, and see how they can get a tighter seal behind things. And, you know, they do tend to use spray, the 1 part can spray foam, which many people do fine with after 24 to 48 hours of off-gassing, but you could use other caulkings and things, and like I said, just even the gaskets maybe could help you with also covering the little outlets. The little outlet covers, like the childproof ones, and put some tape over it. So those are the main areas where things are going to be coming in. Well, they'll come in through anywhere, right? Anywhere where there's an air gap. But if you've got something in your hallway, seal up the door, get the negative pressure off, and if you've got something coming from that way, you can close things up there. And then there's the outlet issue as well. So the only other interesting thing I saw was someone that was coming up to having some pesticide spraying done, not in their place, but in the building. And what they wanted to do was create positive pressure, actually. So you're going that extra step. So you're not just eliminating all that negative pressure, like this fan, but you're actually adding positive pressure. And so that will keep everything out for that day or 2 days that there's spraying going on in the rest of the building. And, you know, I wouldn't be keen to stay in a building. I'm not saying you should, but if you have to, stay somewhere where something like that's happening, or even maybe, I don't know, another chemical event that you know is going to happen. Maybe there's maybe, you know, when they're doing the big carpet clean in the hallway, and you want to prepare for that. So you can bring in positive pressure. It's a little tricky depending on what you want to do. If it was the hallway, no problem. You get the IQ air and you get the window hookup, and you bring you fit that up to the window. And so your IQ air, just like any standalone air purifier, is filtering the air, but it's bringing in the air from outside. So that would be if your outside air on that side was fine. If your outdoor air on that side is not fine, not good, then you have a little more difficult project. But, you know, the person was in a house that had the pesticide spraying going on at another level. And there were some ideas there from Carl Grimes on bringing in positive pressure from further away from the house. So, you know, you don't even need that much air to create that kind of positive pressure. Okay, so that's my tour of this very good concrete building that I have found by using my senses, my reactivity, and by analyzing the building and knowing which buildings to even go bother to see. This is going to be a series of checking out buildings and different ones. I'll hope to do one on a hotel too. And I hope to really dispel the idea that apartments are really bad. And I definitely understand if you're really high MCS or you're really high EMF sensitive and you got all the, 10, 15 Wi-Fi signals. Totally understand, not trying to convince you otherwise there. But in terms of the quality of the build, I just almost never see a house. This is 2 years old. I went to see a house that was 1 year. I've seen a couple houses 1 year old. One was okay. It wasn't too bad. It was definitely way higher off-gassing. And then another one, I actually didn't find it was that higher off-gassing, but there was something just horrifically toxic. I just thought I felt like I was dying. And, those of you who have really severe reactions, like, you feel like you're dying. There's no other way to describe it. You're not going to sleep. You can't breathe. You feel like you're going to collapse. So there was nothing wrong. There was nothing visibly wrong with that building, and it certainly looked, a year old. It didn't look like a remodel. The slab, everything looked new. I don't think it was. I don't know what it was. I could not pinpoint it. I'm suspecting mold, obviously, but moldy materials going up. Possibly the slab, possibly something else, really, like radon. I don't know, but it was a mystery. But still, houses, even though that one was a bit of a mystery, houses are just really built so poorly here, and in almost all of the U.S. except for some really high-end or custom-made custom-made houses by a really good builder who really cares about quality and they'll say things like durability, and they'll say things maybe even energy savings, because they might be really detail oriented with the details. So there are some really good builders, and I'm starting to list more of those on the resources page. But this is going to be a series of analyzing condos. There's going to be a checklist coming out, and I'll link to any other relevant resources that I mentioned. All right, so bye for now.